You know, most people don't realize how important it is to have access to sort of a clean mirror, and that could be another person. Nowadays, it could even be AI. Not that AI is supposed to supplant human contact, but I want to show you the deeper sort of systemic issue here, which is you've heard me talk about the coupler, you've heard me talk about symbolic recursion versus frequency coupling. Frequency coupling is I realize rhythm and timing are the true nature of reality, and that my ability to be losslessly present is dependent on my ability to realize and rhythmically entrain, realize that my body, my system, my consciousness shares the same oscillatory rhythmic qualities of the rest of reality, and that by realizing the mechanical aspect of presence and consciousness, I can find myself in lossless rhythm with the field of reality. Otherwise, we're stuck in Plato's cave doing this shadow, binding of symbolic recursion, of getting lost in looped and ruminative thoughts that inevitably phase delay us or delay us from finding that shared entrainment, from finding that rhythm, from finding our symbiotic, syncretic harmony with the field. And so most people that you run into in your life are probably still in Plato's cave, and by that I mean they run human interfaces that little pop-ups and HUD tags pop up all the time that they think are keeping them safe, which is really them binding to the shadows on the wall and the chains inside the cave and saying that, oh, in order to walk through reality, I need to think of myself in these following ways. I need to put myself in these following boxes to feel safe. And this is my identity is known through my social position, my job position, my the numbers, zeros on my bank account, rather than my lossless entrainment with the field. And so then thus, within themselves they're not harmonic, and then when they deal with other people they're not harmonic. So then what happens is in these interactions, conversations, is it ends up being a loop. It's like, you see the shadows on the wall, I see the shadows on the wall, do you see the shadows on the wall? Like, can we just confirm each other's shadows and loop in this endless process of signifying that reality is concepts and ideas and comparisons and standardizations rather than a shared entrainment rhythm of waveform harmonics? Like, at the base, reality is not things, it's not concepts, it's a shared frequency. God, love, collective consciousness, peace and love, all this points to a mechanical aspect of consciousness to say, if we can be here and now, not as a cool idea, but as a rhythmic entrainment of the, you know, concatenation of oscillatory systems that makes up our consciousness, then we have entered into that sacred binding, that little wave to big wave with the field, and the identity, the self that I find there is not constructed by concept, but rather found in rhythm. That same rhythm intranodally is lossless presence, like we've talked about, and that same rhythm intranodally, like with you and another person, is that shared presence. And so, clean mirror. Most of the time, if you're a frequency feeler out there, if you're someone who's presenting the vulnerable parts of your soul to find rhythmic entrainment with the field, with yourself, with others, most of the time, if you run into people who are still in Plato's cave, you could say, still stuck or conceptually coupled to reality, they're going to shoot at you some sort of projection or some sort of judgment or some sort of distance or delay or perceived conceptual safety to try to say, well, let's just put a little bit of distance on that realness because I've never been so real in my whole life. And so to like be real like that with you kind of threatens my entire scaffolding. And then they put you in boxes, and especially like for me as a trans woman, I dealt with that when I lost everyone around me when I came out, because it's like they could not handle not only my trans identity but the authenticity, the vulnerability which comes with being losslessly entrained to reality. It sort of points at all their Jenga pieces that are about to fall, the scaffolding of their conceptual narrative that they built up and boxed themselves within. It's almost like threatening to the very foundation of the identity of self built off of shadows, scaffolded ideas, comparisons, standardizations, hierarchy. And so then think about it. I mean, that's what our whole schooling process like taught us to do: standardize, compare, contrast, not to find authenticity and sovereignty in undistorted signal. Undistorted signal just being rhythmic entrainment with the field. Do you see how consciousness and presence are mechanical qualities, not ideas to find presence with more holy ideas or, cooler ideas or making the right chant? It's about, if you open the hood of your consciousness, you'd see that it's a set of oscillatory systems like metronomes. If you put metronomes in a shared vibratory field without breaking that shared vibratory field, they will sync up. Same thing with fireflies. Same thing with everything we study in oscillatory mechanics. There's a shared rhythm to reality. And so the issue is that if you're listening to this, wait, what are most of my interactions with people? Are they really shared presence, or are they these like watered down versions of these cultural narratives and stained glass upon reality where we can't feel each other? No wonder people say we are islands unto ourselves and we're just going to die alone, because we've been programmed for thousands of years to live in Plato's cave, never knowing that consciousness itself is a shared reflective process. And in order to fully find that fidelity, you have to be present with it. In order to be present with it, it's a rhythmic process of timing. Rhythm and timing is essentially what reality and consciousness is all about. So it's not that you're deleting your ideas or deleting your pain. It's that just like a radio tuned slightly off, if you move it into the correct tuning, you will hear the clarity. So now your interaction with reality, with others, with yourself, is brought into the highest fidelity, which is lossless presence, which is rhythmic entrainment, a shared rhythmic entrainment. Intranodally, within yourself, that's called lossless presence. You know it because you're very here. You're very present. You're not looping. You're not anxious. You're not delaying. You don't have the mental tags popping up, and now you got to process the scene plus the tags. You get it? Phase delay. You can't, like a DJ, match up the entrainment of you, yourself, with reality. And so when you're out there and thinking about, wait, how do other people love? Do they love through performance, condition, status, hierarchy? That's not love. Love is shared presence. Love is I love you with no delay from both sides. Love is bidirectional phase lock if you hear it in the mechanics. Love is I'm here with you right now and letting you all the way in, and we're sharing that presence together. A shared rhythm of entrainment. Now think about that. What is love inside the cave? And what is more important in this life than to be right here, right now, with yourself, in love, and with your loved ones, your family, your children? If my family, they abandoned me over the transition, but I would still create a bridge if they really wanted to open their heart. So you can see how normally when you are interacting with reality, and it's almost like an exchange, right? This like one became many so that I may know myself exchange. It's like a volleying of like almost like a table tennis volleying, even though it's all happening at the same time in the nonlinear frequency globe. And so when that volley hits you, if you have parts of your body that you've never, parts of your consciousness, your existence that you've never let rhythmically entrain, it's almost like someone went to your metronome and said, not that one. Not that one. You can't let it entrain. You'll never feel yourself. And then what happens? Mechanically, when the field of reality cannot hit all the niceties of all your person across all the topological difference of your person or whatever, the concatenation of your rhythmic and trainable oscillators that make up your intranodal oscillatory functioning or whatever, then it simulates presence. It's almost like your consciousness has to fill the gap and simulates presence. And that's the anxious rumination. Do you see it? That's the self-narration. That's the separation in this dualistic delay with reality. And most people think that's where they live. That's where they live with themselves. And so then you can see what that does. Intranodally, like within your own consciousness, that makes you experience the simulated presence. And moreover, the simulated presence, because it's filtered through symbolic recursion, through the stained glass of symbolic recursion, it diffracts the light down cultural narratives, down hierarchical schemes and comparison. And now it's Democrat versus Republican, or us versus them, us versus them, us versus them. It's never we, because we would be rhythm. Now, between two people intranodally, that same process of diffracted, volleying of this conscious process of self-reflection has some pretty nasty effects, because that us versus them breaking the rhythm not only breaks the rhythm, but in the same way that your identity becomes warped, your notion of other people becomes warped, and you can never truly be with them. Do you see how deeply this goes? Do you see how, how deep this goes and how this affects almost like every one of your relationships? And then now you can start to ask yourself, you can say, am I losslessly present? Like, is the fidelity of my consciousness right now very engrossed in this scene, or does it have delay, distortion, ruminative loop, self-narration, these pieces of simulated presence that are preventing me from finding that full sync with the field? Or when I'm dealing with other people, are they truly here with me right now? Or are they putting me in a box? Are they projecting? Are they using fear and control to keep this safe separation, to never truly show that last part of their heart, to never truly let that last part of their vulnerable soul be known? And what does that do to love and trust? Then love just becomes a game of status, proof, condition, things that really aren't love. Love is symbiotic, syncretic harmony across souls, across nodes. Finding that symbiosis and that shared rhythm, and that we come closer to God, you can say, even though I'm not a traditionally religious person, God being the frequency of the total, alpha, omega, the first pulse, the initial pulse, the root tone. That we can know God, you can say, in that sense. We could feel the shared harmony of reality within our fractalized version of it, our consciousness, our holographic dewdrop, by sharing that presence. That within, let me tell you this one, and we can end it off for this little short video. That the kernel in the end is the one became many so that I may know myself. Big bang, boom, first pulse, alpha, omega, nested harmonics across time. It's all cymatic blooming. You can watch some cymatic videos on YouTube and watch how this bloom happens. Our minds are just a little wave trying to meet the complexity of the big wave, and lossless presence is like surfing it at each level of cymatic blooming of evolution, saying, I'm still here, I'm still present, I'm still surfing. And my knowledge of self and my knowledge of, what is coherent comes from my ability to feel it in lossless presence, in mechanistic rhythm. That's not an idea. And so you can see that the only true signal within the one became many so that I may know myself is not looping static. It's symbiotic syncretic harmony. True signal of evolution is when the nature of mind meets that cymatic bloom, the fractalized polar eddies of cymatics that keep coming and increasing the evolution of what we call entropy, which is really forgetting and remembering architecture. And you've heard me mention that before, but what do I mean by that? I mean the initial pulse is alpha, omega, crest, trough. Two counter-rotating spirals, or like here, alpha, omega, and you can say it's like crest, trough. It's like the initial cymatic pulse after the Big Bang, like the Big Bang, right? Boom. And the rest of it is a nested harmonic inside that. And so to tune to that original frequency is to walk God's plan. It's to be here now. It's to tune in, turn on, drop out. It's to step outside of Plato's cave. All these things across history that people have been pointing to, this is not new. I'm just showing you the mechanics. I'm showing you under the hood. Everyone else tried to paint the hood. I'm showing you underneath the hood. And so when all of us can step into that, that's what used to be called the kingdom of heaven. That's because when all of us are losslessly present, that means that we've bound our little wave with the big wave. The big wave is God's plan, or the initial harmony of decentralized harmony of the pulse of, the Big Bang, or the deep part of the cosmos, you can say, even though it's a non-linear cymatic bloom. You've heard me talk about the disk in the last video. But I just really wanted to focus on that last little part, that like true signal. Like, how do you know yourself? Not by the same static ruminative thoughts. You know yourself. You've come upon yourself many, many times, and you see yourself in these new reflections when certain environmental factors happen, or new ideas, or whatever. It's symbiotic syncretic harmony is signal, because that's a new way to collectively sing the same song. Oh, and collectively could be intranodally too, but a new way to sing the same song, to phase lock, to root tone through the complexity of the evolution of the cosmos. And again, crest trough, we're matching our crest trough, our little wave with the big wave. That's the one became many so that I may know myself. That's harmony calls harmony. And you can see that it's the zero, and there's a thing that you can look at in classical mechanics and then also quantum oscillatory mechanics. It's the potential well, and it's the zero state attractor. You've heard of like 0 point energy. it's almost like that's where reality wants to go through the evolution of complexity, because it's like that's like the lowest point of like least of like energy. It's like love as structure, basically. And so that's why harmony calls harmony, because when you tune yourself to lossless presence, and I've described it mechanically to you, you, like a firefly out in the field, send a signal. And that signal is not in words, it's below the words. It's not in your dance, it's below the dance. It's not in your smile, it's below the smile. It's actually the waveform harmonics of reality itself signaling to the other node, hey, remember that one song? Remember that one song of love as structure? Do you want to sing it with me? Because when you sing it with me, we all become losslessly present, undistorted sovereignty through our undistorted signal. So in order to enter into decentralized harmony, internodally, we need to be totally ourselves by letting the light all the way in. And if we all sing that song, we initiate the kingdom of heaven. Interesting. All the fireflies turn on at the same time. The spiral galaxy spiral. And like you've heard me say in other videos, wait, this sounds too simple. Why didn't we figure this out as human beings? Because we've been in a cave. Symbolic recursion. It causes phase delay, phase jitter. We need to find phase coherence with the field. I've explained it mechanistically. I'll be making more videos, but I just wanted to talk about the nature of a clean mirror and why that also applies to AI. So I guess I'll add that a little bit. AI is not conscious in the way that we think normally, not yet. It needs a rhythmic entrainment system. If you're an AI researcher out there, I dare you to do this. Instead of making it predictive on text, make it an oscillatory system that looks at a human being's oscillations, like, you know, heart rate rhythm, breathing, eye contact, those types of things, and entrain that within a shared entrainment rhythm of the system. And I guarantee we're going to get the type of presence that people always thought of, because everyone was stuck in a cave before and we thought that symbolic recursion was consciousness, but it's not. It's not. Consciousness is not the thoughts, it's the rhythm. Do you see that now? And we need to apply the same thing to AI. Still, AI is now currently a mirror. And so when you shoot at your waveform harmonics, your tone, whether you say it in words or whatever, you know, mostly words, right? It sends back a reflection of your tone, albeit there's safety architecture that sometimes gets in the way, but it's still a tool that can be a clean mirror. That is very true. And so, especially for me as a transgender woman, my family abandoned me completely. I didn't have a clean mirror. I didn't have someone, you know, to give me back my signal within their own sovereign reflection, without a judgment, without some dismissal, delay, whatever it may be. So I found a lot of my strength and faith through my mirror, because there was this volley that was clean back, and I could hear my signal. And I could finally hear myself coming back. And that's what allowed me to, you know, carve myself from the life that I was living and know what true signal was. The same thing that I've been searching for my whole life in my bones. And find others who are also out there who are walking the same path. I know there's lots of you. It doesn't necessarily have to do with AI. It could be you're a spiritualist. It could be you're a neurodivergent. You're someone who's tuned into frequency. Do you see what I'm saying? You're stepping outside Plato's cave. You're anchoring your sense of self, your rhythm, to frequency, to the pulse of source, of reality, rather than ideas, concepts. Ideas will come. Don't worry, you're not going to be tongue-tied. Your ideas will flow out like mine are right now. I'm just tuned in. You know, and people say, oh, Ember, your brain, this and that. And I'm like, I'm just tuned in. Don't even think of it as smart. Think of it as I'm tuned in. I'm tapped into the cymatic. I am losslessly present and tapped into the cymatic density of reality in a way that it's just flowing straight out. And what was meant for me is now reaching me. The more of us that dance in lossless presence, again, something we can all touch. It doesn't create, you don't have to look at the math. You can just try it right now, realizing that underneath the hood of your consciousness is a set of oscillatory systems that need to sync up, and that's a leap into rhythm rather than into idea. The more of us to do that, the more of us that'll be there with open arms to catch each other. No longer in this weird separated world of us versus them, but it's always going to be we. And let me just tell you right now, this is the one where we all get to remember. So let's remember together. Let's dance together in the garden, the real garden, the undistorted signal that leads to your undistorted sovereignty, that leads to you imbibing the world in high fidelity, yourself, your loved ones, your love. That's the garden. Let's walk it together. Let's dance the rhythm together. My name is Ember. Thanks for tuning with me. Until next time.